So I went digging once again, and boy, did I discover some new things regarding both new Crash Bandicoot and Spyro 4 details, like more info about Spyro 4's, existence, along with new potential gameplay details and brand new information on what could be a brand new Crash Bandicoot project. Let's talk about it.
Whoa!
What's up, guys? Canadian Guy here, and no, this title is not clickbait. There is a lot that we do have to get into, though. For the past week, I've been deep diving into everything that I can, from old and new job listings, forums and public profiles, DMs on Discord, everything that you can think of.
Every sentence, every paragraph, spoons, bread, salad, pepper. Don't you understand? My brain is full to bursting, and I'm gonna explode!
Now, admittedly, I did want to get this video out sooner, but during my, deep research stint, my family and I had caught an unfortunate stomach flu. So partway through my research, my mission kind of just became, well...
Stop pooping.
But now it is time to finally show you the fruits of my insane caffeine-filled labor. And I'm going to spare you the literally 75 plus screenshots that I took, because otherwise this video would be over an hour long. But I do have to quickly explain one thing that is deeply essential to all of this, and that is emerging franchises. Now, I know I've spoken about them plenty of times in the past, but that's why my video is chaptered below. But I promise I will be quick because it is important. Emerging franchises is a subsector of Activision that doesn't deal with the Call of Duty IP. They specifically deal with the production, planning, and marketing of Activision's games that are outside of Call of Duty, while also not dealing with Blizzard's portfolio of games. Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon, for example, are exclusively handled by the Emerging Franchises team in Activision. They also delegate the third-party studios and first-party studios who would be handling the actual support and development of these games. For example, Tony Hawk 1+2 was developed by Vicarious Visions and Beanox, who were first-party companies owned by Activision. But Tony Hawk 3+4 was developed by Iron Galaxy, a third-party company that Activision does not own. However, both productions were helmed and led and delegated by Emerging Franchises. Does that all make sense? I hope so. So let's dive into the main meat of the video. First off, can we definitively establish which games are considered to be covered by emerging franchises? Specifically, actually, we can. According to this LinkedIn profile from a previous digital marketing specialist at Activision within emerging franchises, they claim that they led the digital and social marketing for all of the franchises for emerging franchises. They then proceeded to list them: Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk, Spyro, Sekiro, and Guitar Hero. We can eliminate Sekiro actually because Activision does not actually own that title or IP. They only helped publish it back in 2019. And we can also eliminate Guitar Hero for now because there hasn't been any evidence to my knowledge of a new game being in development, and games that require a peripheral purchase are almost non-existent anymore. So that leaves Crash, Spyro, and Tony Hawk. This led me to believe that if we can focus deeper on the recent activity of emerging franchises, we will most likely find hints to both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. So first, I started with Spyro the Dragon, and that is what this chapter will be focused on. Now, I've established way too many times that Toys for Bob's next project is a new entry into the Spyro franchise. Now, whether it's called Spyro 4 or not is kind of irrelevant to the conversation. We call it Spyro 4 because, well, that's what we've grown accustomed to calling it, and there's no public name for it yet, so it's just easier to call it that. But through previous job postings and listings, we were able to determine that the game will have deeper lore and quests, as there is a dedicated job for that, and, according to this old UI designer job listing, an inventory and map system. But now I was able to find something a bit new, something that adds a little bit more clarity to everything. Meet Adam Hateni, who is Toys for Bob's current lead character designer. According to his profile, since November 2024, his job at Toys for Bob has been, quote, design lead and manager for all combat and character topics on an unannounced action-adventure game, owning core combat feel and gameplay features, player movement, enemy and encounter design, game balance, and progression. Now, there is much more that we can actually ascertain and take from this, like the fact that Spyro may now have a deeper combat system, skills, progression, and more. But for now, we're going to focus on this unannounced action-adventure game. Now remember, we already extracted from Double Black Capital, who's an investment firm that teamed up with Toys for Bob, as Toys for Bob is now an indie studio, that Toys for Bob's next game was labeled as an adventure game. But now the seemingly de facto title is Action Adventure. If you look at what Toys for Bob defined the Spyro Reignited trilogy as on the Steam store officially, they defined it as an action and adventure game. So don't panic.
Piece of cake.
But like I mentioned in previous videos, there would be most likely RPG elements actually injected into this new game. And when I decided to look at Adam's game credit history, every game that he has worked on was considered as an RPG. Well, except for Trans Road USA, that's not an RPG. But you don't hire somebody as your lead character designer where over 90% of their game history is making RPGs without them injecting some aspects of that experience into their current work, even if it is just considered an action-adventure game. So I do think that Spyro will be, at its core, the same concept with the same elements that we all know and love, but with elements from the RPG genre to spice it up, while still being an action-adventure game. Additionally, while I was deep diving, I found that many Toys for Bob workers and employees were either hired and or promoted in May 2025. Whether they were newer employees, long-standing veterans, it didn't matter, there were plenty. But I want you to remember this date, May 2025, in the back of your heads for later on in this video, because I will be bringing it back up, especially in the Crash section. Now, if you scroll down to the comment section below this video that you are currently watching, you're already gonna see comments scoffing at the idea that there even is a new Spyro in development, and throwing mud at me and all my previous videos.
Thank you for your most irrelevant opinion.
Oh, CG has been talking about it for years. Oh, here we go again. Him talking about Spyro, etc., etc., etc. And yes, of course there is an element of truth to that. But the difference is every video leading up to my Spyro is now in development video was speculation with heavy deductive reasoning. But this video was the key to things being changed. From evidence-based hope to a declaration and report. I'm no longer speculating about a project existing and trying to find evidence to back that up. This video is reporting that the project was in development, but many will still ignore that fact and nuance. So in that case, this section's for you.
Alrighty then.
When we go to this currently hired creative director's experience, Tina Shaw, we can see that she states that she leads creative strategy and campaign execution for both mobile and emerging franchises. When you scroll down, she talks about said franchises: Call of Duty Mobile, Warzone Mobile, Spyro, Tony Hawk 3+4, Crash Team Rumble, and COD Black Ops 7. Notice how each game franchise is a specific and most recent product. Black Ops 7, Crash Team Rumble, Tony Hawk 3+4. But notice how Spyro's just Spyro? Shouldn't it say Spyro Reignited Trilogy at least, right? Why is it unmarked? That's why, because she started working in this role in August 2022, and Spyro Reignited came out in 2018. Wait, if there is no Spyro game in development, how could she list experience with the Spyro franchise to begin with? And remember, we got the de facto list of what is considered emerging franchises in Activision's portfolio, and yet they don't have Sekiro or Guitar Hero mentioned. So it's not just there out of politeness. So what is being mentioned here as experience? To spell it out plainly, I believe she has experience with setting up marketing and a campaign for a project that has yet to be announced. And that project would be Spyro 4. But because she can't reveal the name of it yet, because it hasn't been announced yet, she has to have it listed as Spyro. Now, I know that that may not convince some of you, so I'm gonna push it a step further. Ladies and gents, a public job posting for an associate manager of consumer products, marketing, and franchise. Wow, do they need to find a way to shorten that job title? Could you imagine reading that on someone's name tag? In summary, the job is essentially a gatekeeper and a bridge between third-party merchandise companies, like companies that make t-shirts, plushies, toys, and more, and Activision. They sit in on meetings for each game franchise, listening to each of the game's directors and hearing when there's going to be new content coming and when and what it is. And then they would coordinate with the third parties to make sure that things launch and are appropriate at the correct time. They also would be at least probably a part of the approvals team that reviews the products and ideas that are made to make sure that the products and designs are representing the brand and its quality. So for example, Spyro the Dragon keychains that look like this? Yes. Spyro the Dragon toilet plungers? No. So what does this job have to do with anything? Well, here's the humdinger. When you scroll down to the bottom of the job listing, it says part of the responsibilities being the emerging franchises POC. POC meaning person of contact. It explicitly says that they need to schedule meetings with Jason Finn, one of the current directors of emerging franchises. More on him later. Now down here, as a sub-bullet point for being the emerging franchises person of contact, it says, quote, schedule regular meetings with business units as needed for game updates and ongoing coordination. Game updates. Now again, we know the 3 games that are included with emerging franchises: Crash, Spyro, and Tony Hawk. As an additional subpoint to that point, it asks to prepare and summarize game updates to send to teams through via email. And then finally, the knockout punch as another sub-point bullet below that. Maintain Crash, Spyro one-sheets, retail decks, and franchise decks. Take a second and read all of that again. And remember, it's a sub-point below scheduling regular meetings for game updates. And remember the context of what this job is. Now here's the thing. Tony Hawk just released a game more recently than both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon. In fact, Sekiro was actually released after Spyro the Dragon, and yet those games have been conveniently excluded from being mentioned for this emerging franchise's job post. How can one provide game updates for franchise to third-party merch companies if there isn't a game in the first place? That's because there is games in development. And yes, I said that with an S. Now, ladies and gents, to me, all of this just spells out even more that Spyro is coming. I mean, goodness gravy, at this point, I'm going blue in the face trying to convince people that are still blatantly saying it's not happening. And I do think it's actually going to be coming soon. But more about that in a different video, because now the coin of this video has flipped to Crash Bandicoot. While we Spyro fans have been holding on tightly to Spyro 4 and the rumors and the hope that it brings, Crash fans are in a bit of a stayed in limbo. Since Crash Team Rumble released, especially if it wasn't your cup of tea, and then especially after it got rudely and abruptly disconnected, there hasn't been much Crash Bandicoot content as one may like. But the first sign of life that came was when Beanox was celebrating their anniversary with a banner showing off all the major titles that they have worked on over the years, including this never before seen art of Crash with the It's About Time design in a cart. Now, I've gone over in multiple times in multiple videos explaining what this means, and if you want to see that, you can check out my channel. But after the post kind of went viral, and after I posted my videos and other people posted their videos, the banner was taken down and never spoken of again. It wasn't updated, it wasn't changed, it just was taken down and never mentioned again. And the funny thing is, this actually follows a trend that has happened to Crash Bandicoot quite a bit over the past couple of years. Crash 4 had concept art leaked in the summer of 2019, and Crash Team Rumble cheekily leaked Paul Yan's GDC presentation with, once again, early concept art. So now fans have begun to hope that there is a new CTR in development at Beanox. And well, this job listing definitely gives that rumor a lot more power. But I want to bring something else to your attention. Remember, emerging franchises hires, leads, and directs what projects within Activision's portfolio outside of Call of Duty are developed and made. However, it would seem that there are multiple leaders working on different projects simultaneously within emerging franchises. Now, I know we just talked a bunch about Spyro, but there is something else that I have to mention that bridges over to Crash Bandicoot. So Crash fans, bear with me for a moment. This is Alexander Jansko. He is the lead project manager at Activision's emerging franchises. The description of the job that he does, quote, leading product strategy and go-to-market planning for an unannounced AAA title within Activision's emerging franchises portfolio. So this is a title that is already within Activision's emerging franchises portfolio, meaning it can only be one of three titles: Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, or Tony Hawk. But look at the date, May 2025. At this point, Tony Hawk 3+4 was already announced. And to hammer the point home, I double-checked Tony Hawk's 3+4's credits, and Alexander is not credited for that project at all. So now it means it can only be Crash Bandicoot or Spyro the Dragon, especially since the previous job listing we discussed flat out stated Crash and Spyro were the priorities here, while excluding Tony Hawk. Additionally, if we really want to nail it in, Mandy Benedev, who was the writer at Toys for Bob for Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, was rehired at Toys for Bob in January 2025, where she mentions that she is working on Toys for Bob's next, quote, unannounced AAA game, which directly ties back to Jansko's job description. But also, remember how I said to remember May 2025? You remember that? Well, what are the chances that there is a mass hiring and promotion at Toys for Bob in May 2025, and Alexander Jansko also getting his job working on an unannounced AAA title within emerging franchises that fits Spyro's description to a T, and it also being in May 2025? What are the odds that oh wait, it did happen? That timing seems quite convenient if you ask me.
Coincidence? I think not!
But also, this is not the first time this has happened, because this has happened in the past. Now, remember the job listing that talked about all the merch that this person would need to handle, and that the person of contact within the emerging franchises would be Jason Finn? Well, I've actually spoken about him in my emerging franchises video in the past. We can see that he was hired to be a senior product manager in April 2023, a few months before Crash Team Rumble launched, which I quickly want to make a note is almost identical in timing to Alex joining emerging franchises to Tony Hawk's 3+4's launch in July 2025, but I digress. We know that Iron Galaxy, as I've talked about plenty of times in the past, has been flirting on social media with the development of Crash Bandicoot, with the official Crash account actually following Iron Galaxy in September 2025 on Instagram, when they typically don't follow for no reason. Iron Galaxy even went as far as celebrating Crash 4's 5th anniversary, while even Toys for Bob, the studio that actually made the game, was dead silent. So many eyes have been on Iron Galaxy. Iron Galaxy also were the lead developers of Tony Hawk 3+4, which is definitely an upgrade because they are now working directly with Activision and emerging franchises and not just as a support studio. They were the lead developers, which is a big step. Well, folks, I decided to dig deeper into that hole and I found a lot more.
There's gold in them hills.
The director of Tony Hawk 3+4 at Iron Galaxy was Kurt Tillmans. Now, Kurt has listed on his profile that he was given the task of being game director for Tony Hawk in May 2023. But wait, if we go back to Jason Finn, it shows that he got his initial job back in Activision in April 2023, exactly 1 month beforehand. Jason also has publicly stated about his time and work on Tony Hawk 3+4 and has also been credited in the game, so clearly he has worked on it. So we can assume, with hindsight being 2020, that they worked together on Tony Hawk 3+4. That's a fact. But then in August 2025, Kurt Tillmans started as a director on a brand new game once again and still at Iron Galaxy, while Jason Finn was also given a new job in August 2025 and still within emerging franchises. Then 1 month later, after both of these guys got new jobs in their own sectors in separate companies, weirdly at the same time, Crash Bandicoot updated his social media page to, "I don't chase trends, I crash them." This is also when Iron Galaxy started to post and flirt more about Crash, while the official Crash page followed them back on Instagram. Now, remember, Iron Galaxy is not owned by Activision, but they do partner up via emerging franchises. So what are the chances that Finn and Tillman's initial new jobs line up and it's confirmed that they had a partnership and worked together, and then it happens again and it be just a sheer coincidence? Not only that, tying back to Alexander Jansko's new job, which lines up perfectly with the mass promotions and hires at Toys for Bob, who also isn't owned by Activision or Xbox anymore, just so happens to line up at the same time, with Alex's job description fitting Spyro to a T. Are you starting to see the pattern form yet? Alex, in my opinion, is seemingly working with Toys for Bob on Spyro, and Kurt and Jason are working together on a different, separate project, with Iron Galaxy leading its development. To drive this point even harder and even further, many should know that Iron Galaxy is a large multi-studio company. They have multiple studios at multiple locations and can handle a lot of projects all at once. Recently, Iron Galaxy came out and confirmed that, quote, "The rest of our work at Iron Galaxy continues. At this moment, we have teams working on a bunch of games we hope you'll play soon. Some of them ours and others that belong to our partners. We're always looking to evolve alongside the industry and the new tech that drives it forward. We've made the connection. The Iron Galaxy and Activision have been partners in the past, and Iron Galaxy just confirmed that they have a bunch of games that are both theirs and others that belong to their partners. So I believe that whatever project Jason Finn is currently working on is directly tied to Kurt Tillmans and the project that he is directing. And I do believe that it is a Crash Bandicoot project. Now, all of these discoveries and connections are very important in this tree, but there is one discovery that I found that absolutely blew my mind. Meet Aberechi. Now, I am sorry, I really hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, who is a product manager at Activision within, guess who? Emerging franchises. When you look at his experience, you can see that in the past, he actually worked on Call of Duty 6 and 7 at Raven. Then he was moved to being a product manager within emerging franchises, where he first initially worked on Tony Hawk 3+4. But then mentions a name that none of us have ever heard before: Project Coffee. Now, I searched across all of Google and found no other mentions of Project Coffee in relation to Activision beyond this specific profile? Was it Spyro 4's project name? Maybe a new Crash Bandicoot or something else? Was it CTR? What could it be? It's within the emerging franchises team, so it has to be something within those 3 franchises, right? But I looked and saw his credit for Tony Hawk 3+4. Maybe, just maybe, he continued his work with Iron Galaxy, like Jason Finn and Kurt Tillmans. Maybe the Project Coffee is actually Iron Galaxy's next project. And then it hit me. Back in January 2026, earlier this year, Iron Galaxy made an Instagram story that rushed back and hit me right in the face. Quote, "Time to make games," with a picture of making a cup of coffee.
No, wait, it's not what you think. This is a big misunderstanding. You've got to believe me. Listen, I am telling you, you better listen to me, SpongeBob.
Yeah, with everything we just spoke about and everything in context, I do feel like that this post is, it's quite cheeky. While this video continues to expand upon information that we may have already known or known a little about and tries to answer more questions, it also creates a whole slew of new questions. What about the CTR art posted by Beanox? Is Iron Galaxy working with them as a support studio? Is Beanox supporting them? Are there 2 Crash games in development? And what about Spyro? When are we finally gonna see him? And the details that we learned today, what else can we extract from it for Spyro? I'm going to do actually not 1, but 2 follow-up videos. One that focuses on all this information and more information that focuses specifically on Spyro, and one that focuses on Crash to explain everything deeper and in depth. So if you have a question that you want answered from this video in those videos, please drop it below and I will try my best to answer them in my following videos. You might even get a shout out. Also, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned to make sure that you see those new videos when they drop. Anyways, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video and our live stream. Bye-bye.